When people think about the fall of Rome, they imagine dramatic invasions, palace betrayals, and collapsing legions. They see the smoke of a burning capital and the chaos of barbarian hordes. What they rarely consider is the quiet, administrative rot that preceded the fire. Long before Rome collapsed militarily, it collapsed economically. And at the very center of that collapse was a tax system that slowly, methodically destroyed the middle class. The cost of empire. By the 2nd century AD, the Roman Empire had reached its greatest territorial extent. From the deserts of Africa to the rainy borders of Britain, Rome was the world. But size came with a staggering cost. Armies had to be paid, borders had to be defended, a massive growing bureaucracy had to be fed. Wars were no longer profitable conquests. They were constant, defensive, and expensive. Rome needed revenue, and it needed it immediately. At first, taxation targeted the wealthy elites, the senators and the grand landowners. But elites throughout history have one thing in common: they adapt. They used their political influence to secure exemptions. They hid their assets in complex legal structures. They transferred their wealth into vast, untaxable estates. The tax burden did not disappear. It simply moved downward, looking for a path of least resistance. The squeeze on the productive small landowners, craftsmen, and local merchants became the new backbone of Roman taxation. The people who produced real value, those who actually grew the food and made the goods, were squeezed the hardest. This marks the first psychological stage of collapse: the erosion of fairness. As long as people believe a system is fair, they will tolerate sacrifice for the common good. But when sacrifice becomes one-sided, trust erodes. When the merchant sees the senator paying nothing while his own children go hungry to pay the tax collector, the social contract is broken. Taxes increased steadily, not with a single shocking blow, but through a relentless, creeping expansion. What was once manageable became suffocating. Farmers were required to deliver fixed quotas of grain regardless of drought or poor harvests. Merchants were forced to pay heavy duties even as trade routes became dangerous and profits declined. Failure to comply was not just a financial matter. It meant confiscation, corporal punishment, or forced labor. The psychology of withdrawal economic pressure inevitably reshaped human behavior. People stopped investing in productivity because the reward for success was simply more taxation. Why improve a plot of land if the increased yield would only lead to a higher tax bracket? Why risk a trading voyage when the state would seize the lion's share of the profit? This is the second psychological stage: productive withdrawal. As productivity declined, the state's tax base shrank. To compensate for these shrinking revenues, Rome did the only thing it knew how to do. It raised taxes even higher. A vicious, self-destructing cycle was formed. By the 3rd century, Rome relied less on the consent of its people and more on raw coercion. Tax collectors became symbols of fear and loathing, often accompanied by soldiers. Civic pride, once the greatest strength of the Roman citizen, vanished. The hollow empire. The middle class, the traditional engine of Roman stability, began to disappear. Small landowners abandoned their farms entirely, preferring to live as peasants on the estates of the wealthy rather than face the impossible demands of the state. Cities began to hollow out. Economic life retreated from the vibrant streets of the empire into local, isolated subsistence. This leads to the third and final psychological stage: total disengagement. When people stop believing a system serves their interests, they stop defending that system. Rome did not fall simply because its citizens hated the empire. It fell because Rome made ordinary life unbearable. The state became a predator rather than a protector. By the time external enemies arrived at the gates, the internal foundation was already dust. An empire without a healthy, invested middle class cannot sustain a professional army, a functioning trade network, or the loyalty of its people. The timeless warning: Rome's tax system did not collapse overnight. It was a slow, administrative strangulation. It crushed the very people who kept the empire alive: the producers, the builders, and the believers. The lesson of Rome is timeless and hauntingly simple. Empires fall when they extract too much from those who have the least ability to escape. When the cost of belonging to a society becomes higher than the cost of its collapse, the end is no longer a matter of if, but when.